Welcome to Slaying Excel Dragons video 2. Hey, in this video we're going to cover chapter 2. Here are the topics. Oh, chapter 2 is about one of my favorite topics. How to save tons of time at work and impress your boss with Excel's greatest trick, keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are fast. That's why they're so awesome. Here are some of the keyboard shortcuts we will see in this video. Here is our workbook, and as always, you can download this workbook. Excel is Fun Start. If you click on the link directly below the video. Hey, we're on the sheet Key B for keyboard. First thing we want to do is look at how to highlight a table and paste it on a new sheet. And we're going to see some of the new great control keyboard shortcuts in Excel 2010. Now, if I have a table of data like this and there are blanks all the way around, or column headers or row headers, we can use a keyboard shortcut to instantly highlight the whole table. And now this table's pretty small, but imagine if we had 5,000 rows of data. This keyboard shortcut is amazing. In any one of the cells, you do Control asterisk. Now use the asterisk on the number pad. If you want to use the asterisk on the regular keypad, it's Control Shift 8. I'm going to do that. That was Control Shift 8. I'm going to use Control asterisk on the number pad. Now we've highlighted this. I would like to copy it and paste it on a new sheet. So the keyboard shortcut for copy is Control C, and then you immediately see the dancing ants. If we were cutting it, we would use Control X. Now I want to insert a new sheet right there. Now you could right-click this sheet tab and go to Insert and then say a worksheet. But we're going to use the keyboard shortcut to insert a sheet. It is Shift F11. Shift F11. And boom, we have a sheet right here. Now I'm going to actually Control and hold Control key and roll the wheel on my mouse to zoom in and out. You can also do it down here, but we're using mouse and keyboard here. So I'm going to go stop right there. Immediately, I want to rename this sheet. Sheet 2 is not a good sheet name. You always want to name your sheets, especially when you have a big workbook like this and you need to know what's on each sheet. In addition, when we get to do formulas later with formulas across sheets, the sheet name is very important. So I'm going to rename this. I could either right-click Rename, or I can simply double-click with my mouse. Once it's highlighted, I could type a name. How about Copied Table? Now that cursor's flashing, which means the name is not registered yet. It's not registered until I hit Enter. Now with A1 still selected, I'm going to try this keyboard shortcut for paste. Now Control C is copy, Control X is cut, and paste is V, Control V. Why is it V? Well, mostly because Control P is already used up by print. So Control P is print. The V is next to the C and X, which is very convenient. So now I'm going to Control V. And immediately you see there is a problem here. Those pound signs or railroad tracks mean, oh, hey, I don't have enough room. You're squishing me. The column widths are not wide enough. But no problem. There's an amazing new keyboard shortcut in 2010. This is a Smart Tag, and it has the word Control there. That means you can open it using the Control key. Now I'm going to hit Control, and no way. When you first see this in 2010, these are all pictures. Now you may guess that this one means column width, but I pretty much had to go over each one and read them and learn what they were. Notice when I go to Keep Source Column Widths, there's a W. That means if you hit the W key, it will keep the source column width. So I'm going to try it, W. Now I want to undo this and do it in fast motion because once you get the hang of this and you're always copying and pasting and keeping source column widths, it is an amazingly fast way to do. So the keyboard shortcut for undo is what? Control Z. So Control Z. All right, so you ready? Control V to paste. Notice I had to hold Control down and then tap V. And now I hit in succession Control and W. Totally awesome. Now, over here on KB3, there's a whole list of these. Actually, I should zoom in so you can see these. Oh, totally amazing. There's the one we just did. The convention we're going to use in these videos in this book is a plus means you hold it, so you hold Control V, and then comma means hit the Control next, and then in succession hit the W. Now let's try this one. Control V, Control T for transpose column and rows. What this means is the column headers will become row headers, and the row headers will become column headers. No way, the dancing ants are still dancing around the copy table, so that means it's still copied in the clipboard. I'm going to click here, Control V, I held those, and now in succession, Control T. Is that totally awesome? Now I'm going to hold Control and roll the mouse. I just love these new keyboard shortcuts, Control keyboard shortcuts. Now this one we can't fix with the keyboards because you can't do two of them on top of each other. So I'm going to come over here, and I need to change this column width. You're squishing me. So I'm going to come up here, and when I see the cursor between G and H column headers change to that one, I double click. All right, now I'm going to use my the wheel on my mouse and scroll down to A16. Now watch this. If I highlight these totals right here, right now this is a formula. And if I copy this, it copies the formula. So Control C. Now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to Control V. Well, look what it's doing. It's adding the wrong numbers. So sometimes you actually want to copy the formulas but paste only the formula result or the values. I'm going to Control Z. I'm going to come back over here just to make sure. OK, still copied. Now, I want to show you a different way to invoke the keyboard, the Control Smart tag. Come back over here. Notice these are all, let's see, values. Paste value only. Control V, and then Control and V in succession. Well, no way. There's actually a faster way. There's a few of these Control paste special tricks where you can use the right-click key. So the right-click key and V will invoke paste values only. Now you got to find out where the right-click key. The right-click key is in between Alt and Control. Now you notice there's also the window key, but on the right-hand side of the keyboard there's a window key and a right-click key right in between Alt and Control. The right-click key looks like a drop-down menu with a mouse pointing to it. So we're going to try this. I'm going to make sure the dancing ants are still dancing. I come over here. I have my single cell. I'm going to right-click V. Is that awesome? Totally amazing. No more formulas up here. Keyboard shortcuts rule. All right, now we're going to see a couple other amazing keyboard shortcuts. In fact, these next two are my favorite ones of all time. If I have a column of data and I need to add a total over here, okay, so I could scroll down, and I'm using my wheel to scroll, but I don't know where the bottom is here, right? Is there a way that I can just jump to the bottom? Well, sure there is. Jump to the last item in the current range. That means the bottom of this column. I can use Control and down arrow. Oh, there it is, row 77. Now to jump back up, I Control up arrow. Now what if I wanted to, instead of jump, 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 I wanted to highlight everything? Well, let's try something. If I just with my mouse have this cell selected, and before I click right in A16, if I hold Shift and click, notice everything in between highlights. So in essence, bookend 1. Before I click on the bookend 2, I hold Shift. Everything in between is selected. Well, what did we just do a moment ago? Control down arrow, that jumps. Control up arrow, it jumps. Well, what if I wanted to add borders and I wanted to quickly select everything? Well, instead of just Control arrow, we hold the Shift key also. So Control Shift and down arrow. Now I could add a border, like up here. Now, if that's not cool enough, which it is pretty cool, let's come over here, and I want to add a total inside the sum function. Now, this means we're going to create our very first formula here. And our goal is to add this whole column. Now, if you look up here, this is the home ribbon editing. There's a little sigma. That's the Greek letter for adding in statistics. Notice if I click on this, it says in the screen tip that pops up, it says sum and then alt equals. I'm just going to click this. This is how 99.9% of the people add the sum function. But I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it the keyboard way because it's a lot faster. Plus, if you're in an interview and they're testing you on Excel and you go alt equals, they'll go, whoa, how'd you do that? Now, what is this? This is our first formula. Every formula starts with an equal sign as the first character in the cell. It just so happens that we're using a function here. This one is sum for adding, or it could be average, or lots of other functions we'll see. Inside the parentheses, you have to highlight the whole range with the numbers. Now, by default, functions, whether it's sum or average or others, they try to guess what you want. Now, did this one guess right? No way. It was supposed to guess this whole column, but of course it's not programmed. It can't know exactly what you're thinking. No problem. It's trying to be polite by guessing, but then secondarily, it's trying to be polite because it knows that it guesses wrong, so it's highlighted. As long as the dancing ants are still dancing around, you can simply redirect the range of cells by clicking here. Now, right now, just a moment ago, we did Control-Shift-Down arrow to highlight and then format. Here we can do Control-Shift-Down arrow to put the entire range of cells into our sum function. Now I'm going to hit Enter. What that does is it puts the formula in the cell and moves the cursor one cell below. But there you have it. You can see your formula up here also. Now I want to delete, and I want to do that in high speed. But instead of hitting Enter like that, notice we couldn't see anything on the screen immediately. I can put a formula, or for that matter, anything into the cell with Enter, which goes down, Tab, which goes to the right, Shift-Tab, which goes to the left, and Shift-Enter, ready? Shift-Enter, which jumps up. So in this situation, we would want to go Alt equals, click, Control-Shift-Down arrow, and then Shift-Enter. This keyboard shortcut, Control-Shift-Down arrow to highlight a range, is definitely one of my absolute favorites. Now let's go over and look at, actually, one other thing. Equal sign starts any formula. That happens to be a sum function. That A12 is called a cell reference. That A77 is called a cell reference. That colon makes it a range. It means add everything up from A12 to A77. Now let's go look at some more keyboard shortcuts and another formula. I'm going to click on this sheet, KB2. Now last chapter we learned a keyboard shortcut to go to the next sheet. It would be Control Page Down. It goes this direction to the right. Now I want to learn, let me hold Control and roll my wheel. I would like to learn how to use the keyboard shortcut Control-Enter. Now, let's type the word sales here. And normally, again, people would hit Enter. But I immediately then want to click in this cell and invoke bold using Control-B. So I don't want to waste the Enter, go down, and then click back here. I'm going to Control-Z, Z, Z. So instead, I'm going to go Sales and Sales. Remember, Enter goes down, Tab goes to the right, Shift-Tab goes to the left. Shift-Enter would do nothing here because we can't go up. But Control-Enter keeps the cell selected, puts the thing in the cell, keeps the cell selected. Now think about that. That's going to save us a click. And the situation that you use Control-Enter is when you want to put something in a cell and immediately do something to a cell, like Control-B. All right, now I want to jump to the bottom of this column, so I'm going to use Control-Down arrow, and then simply down arrow one time to jump down there. Now I want to add Alt equals. And now I immediately want to add some formatting to this. So to put the formula in the cell, I'm going to use Control-Enter. And then I'm going to Control-B. All right, so Control-Enter, very convenient. Now let's come over here. I'm going to scroll over. I'm going to use the horizontal scroll arrow here on the scroll bar. Now here's January, February, March, April, revenues, expenses, and net income. I'd like to do a formula here. Now the formula we saw a moment ago, equals sum function, open parenthesis, a range of cells, close parentheses. But forget it. A lot of formulas have nothing to do with functions. Here we just want to take revenue minus expenses. So we're going to say equal sign That's it. That's the symbol that tells Excel I am making a formula in this cell. Equal sign, and now I would like to say that cell minus this cell. Instead of clicking like this and then type in a minus sign and clicking, which you can do, and actually is quite efficient if the cell reference is far away, I'm going to click Escape. I'm going to type the equal sign and then up arrow twice. The arrow keys are faster for putting cell references into formula when the cell references are very close. And then I'm going to type a minus and up arrow. Now this formula is using cell references. Our last formula, we didn't have to copy it. But this one I want to copy. So I immediately want to put the formula in the cell and copy the cell. So again, the idea here is I'm putting something in the cell, and I'm going to immediately do something to it. I'm going to Control Enter. There it goes. It put the formula in the cell, calculated, and kept the cell selected. Now I want to hit F2. F2 is the keyboard shortcut to put the formula in audit mode and then immediately put the cursor at the end. Now, what's going on here? It looks like it says E2 to E3, but for copying purposes, that's not what Excel sees. Excel sees 1, 2 cells above. So when I copy it over, it's not going to copy the cell reference E2. It's going to copy, oh, positionally from me, the point of view of me, the formula, 1, 2 cells above. Same with this one, 1 cell above. Now, we'll talk a lot more about cell references later in the book. Control Enter puts the formula in the cell and keeps the cell selected. Now, this cursor right here is the selection cursor. Well, that little thing in the corner, that little black box, is called the fill handle. And when I move my cursor real close, oh, it turns to a crosshair, or that's what Bill Gates calls it. By the way, that cursor is the move. Most of the times when you're doing formulas, you don't want to move. Uh-oh, I clicked on the move cursor. That's not going to work. It moved it. Control Z to undo. But you want to see that one right there. That's called the crosshair. That's what Bill Gates called it. I like to call it, instead of crosshair, I like to call it an angry rabbit. So I'm going to click with my angry rabbit on the fill handle and drag. Oh, that is so cool. Now, this is called the active cell. These dark colored cells are not the active cell. And what we'd like to do is, active cell is the one that we can do something to. So I'm going to immediately hit F2. Now, F2 puts it into edit mode, but it also does something special. These color-coded cell references also have color-coded boxes surrounding the cell references. This is called Range Finder. It helps you check your formula, to audit your formula to see if it is correct. Now I'm going to look. That does not, even though it says E2, Excel does not see it that way. It sees it as 1, 2 above. Now if it was E2, when I copied it over to the next cell, it would still say E2. I'm going to click Tab to move the active cell to the next cell in the range and hit F2. Not E2, but F2. So we never really want to call them F2, E2. We always want to say, oh, 1, 2 cells above minus 1 cell above. That way, when I copy a formula like this, it's always going to look to a relative position. I'm the formula. In relation to me, where am I going to look? 1, 2 cells above minus 1 cell above. Tab, F2. Tab, F2. All right, so we saw some good keyboard shortcuts. The fill handle, that amazing fill handle. One last keyboard shortcut hint. And this is actually one of the more important ones because, you know, Control C, Control V. There are some keyboard shortcuts that are standard and everyone uses. But what about all these other things in the ribbons that we might want a keyboard shortcut, but there's not a special keyboard shortcut for it? No problem. We can use Alt keyboard shortcuts. Now let's just see what happens when I hit the Alt key. These are the ribbons and the tabs. I'm going to hit Alt. No way. A bunch of little screen tips pop up. In earlier versions, they used to be underlined, but they really improved it in 2007. Now, if I want to do page setup here, which we'll talk about later in the book, I can hit the P, and it will open up the page layout tab in the ribbon. So I'm going to hit P. And then if I want to do page setup right there, there's a little dialog launcher here. If I were to click on it, it would open up the page setup dialog box. But SP. So I'm going to go SP. I'm going to click Escape. That closes that dialog. And I'm going to do it again in fast speed. Alt PSP. Now, Escape, when you're first learning this, the keyboard shortcuts, you don't learn all of them. You just learn the keyboard shortcuts, the Alt keyboard shortcuts for the things you do every day. So if you do page setup day in and day out, coming up here, you're on the Home tab and you have to come page layout, that takes a couple seconds. So you would teach yourself, and then you would go Alt PSP. Throughout this book, I'll show you a lot of Alt keyboard shortcuts. All right, that's a lot about keyboard shortcuts. In our next video, we'll go to chapter 3. All right, now at this point in the book, you can do some homework problems. If you click on the link directly below the book, you can get to this site here, and we're going to download these. I got to show you. So we're going to have lots of homework problems, whether you're taking a class and using this as a textbook or you're learning Excel by reading the book. Absolutely awesome to be able to go and just immediately do some problems just like the ones you just read in the book or watched in the video. I'm going to click Save. I'm going to save this somewhere smart. It's when I save it, now I can click Open. And there it is. It's called Slaying Excel Dragons Homework Chapters 1 to 9. And it's just going to be packed. So here it is, Chapter 1 to 2, 1 to 24. Homework Problem 1. There's the instructions. There's the Excel stuff. And there's the answer. Homework 2, instructions, some stuff to do, answer. Problem, answer, problem, answer. And then as you go forward through this workbook, there's more and more homework problems. So at this point, you can do problems 1 to 4 for chapters 1 and 2. All right, chapter 3 is next video. See you then.